Hello and welcome back. Today's lecture is going to cover basic sentence completion questions, one of the two question types on the critical reading section of the SAT. Sentence completion questions look like this. There is a sentence with either one or two blanks in it, followed by 5 different multiple choice answer options. Your job is to pick the word that best fits into the blank. They make up about 20% of critical reading questions on the SAT, so performing well on these can have a tremendous impact on your score. Like most of the questions on the SAT, sentence completions contain a good bit of trickery. The more difficult questions on this section attempt to fool you by sounding right, but they often make very little sense within the context of the sentence. Instead, what we'll be focusing on is what the words mean, not how they look or sound. Using this idea will help us avoid the traditional tricks and traps the College Board is setting for us in doing these problems. Before we thoroughly investigate each step of the approach, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the basic procedure that we're going to learn and use today. The first step is to physically cover the answer choice so that you cannot see them. Believe it or not, looking at them before you attempt to solve the question will substantially increase the likelihood of your making a mistake. This is because the answer choices are written in a way that is designed to appeal to your worst instincts or bias you to choose an answer that sounds good but actually makes no sense. The second step is to find specific words or phrases that contribute to the meaning of the word in the blank, like adjectives, adverbs, or other modifying phrases. The third step is to find words in the sentence that help define the relationship between those descriptive words or phrases and the words in the blank, like although, however, or but. The fourth step is to use the information that we just came up with and find one of the answer choices that matches most closely to the word you discovered. The strategy starts with identifying the words in the sentence that contribute to the meaning of the word in the blank. There are literally dozens of descriptive words in each sentence, including adjectives, adverbs, phrases, and more. But there are usually only one or two words or phrases that define the word in the blank. Learning to pick out the important words is the first skill you need to develop in order to improve your performance on this part of the test. Let's take a look at an example. In George Orwell's novel, 1984, the author blank the idea of totalitarianism, government, critically illustrating the terrible consequences of tyranny and brutality. In this case, the important words are critically illustrating. Notice that although there are many other ideas to choose from here, those are the only words which literally describe what the blank is about. If you ever have trouble identifying these keywords, try asking yourself, what else in the sentence describes the missing word? Let's take a look at another example. Showing no regard for the well-being of others, Scott ate 6 pieces of cake and left none for other students. Here, showing no regard for the well-being of others is probably what's most strictly going to be defining this anonymous word. Avoid using your imagination as much as possible during the test. Unless it's directly implied in the text, it's probably not going to be the best answer. Now, sometimes blanks may be used to describe the opposite of the descriptive words in the text. In this case, a word or phrase will be used to effectively change the direction of the sentence and change the relationship between the blank and the description of the rest of the sentence. Let's look at the following example. Unlike his father, an outgoing, sociable man, Ray Johnson Jr. was quite a blank. Well, here, the word unlike tells us that whatever word is going to be in this open slot, it should have an opposite meaning to outgoing and sociable. Probably somebody who's a homebody, antisocial, or a little bit reclusive. There are many words which are capable of changing the direction of the description, like, although, however, despite, nonetheless, instead, and so on, are just a few examples. Be on the lookout for words or phrases that indicate a change in the direction of the blank's description. After identifying the important words and descriptions in the sentence, the third step is to come up with your own word which fits the meaning of the blank's description. It's important that you do this without first consulting the answer choices, so that you aren't swayed or biased by their deceptive language. If you need to cover the answer choices with your hand during the test, by all means, do it. Don't worry about coming up with anything too fancy for your choice. This exercise is just going to help you eventually pick the right answer. It doesn't even have to be a real word. You can also recycle words from the existing text It just has to make sense to you and mean something that's real. Let's try it in this example. In George Orwell's novel, 1984, the author blank the idea of totalitarian government, critically illustrating the terrible consequences of tyranny and brutality. Well, one word that comes to mind is criticizes, or hates. Both of these would work, and once we look through our answer choices, we'll see which one is more relevant. Here's another example. Unlike his father, an outgoing, sociable man, Ray Johnson was quite a... Here again, we get to pick a word. We mentioned recluse or antisocial as two possibilities. The fourth and final step of the process is simple. Just take the word that you have come up with and match it up with multiple choice answers. Let's take a look. In George Orwell's novel, 1984, the author, we mentioned, criticizes the idea of totalitarian government, critically illustrating the terrible consequences of tyranny and brutality. Notice first that the word we chose does nothing more than recycle an existing word in the text. Critically illustrating. That's completely fine. Let's take a look if it works. A, denounces. That's a method of criticizing. B, understands. No. C, praises. D, horrifies. Again, no. And E, contrasts. We're left with A, denounces. Notice how similar this is to the word criticizes. Let's move on. In this example, let's take another look at what kind of words we can fit in the space. Showing no regard for the well-being of others, Scott ate 6 pieces of cake and left none for other students. Selfishly, that's another option. Let's take a look at the option choices presented. A, selflessly. Now be careful. This word doesn't mean selfish. It means the exact opposite, actually. Brutally, doesn't relate. Sleepily, not relating. Opportunistically, perhaps. And emotionally, doesn't really seem relevant. So here again, using our own word that we invented, we found the one most similar and checked within the context to see that it in fact works. Here's another example. Unlike his father, an outgoing, sociable man, Ray Johnson Jr. was quite a... We mentioned antisocial, we mentioned homebody. Let's see if anything fits. Socialite, certainly not. Salesman, completely unrelated. Recluse, that's a great word. Engineer, no. And leader, no. Again, we're left with recluse, which is very similar in meaning to somebody who's antisocial or a homebody. Now, even the most experienced SAT experts don't know every single word in the English language. At times, words will appear on the sentence completion portion that you just don't know. The key to surviving these questions is to avoid assumptions. If you don't know what a word means, don't assume anything about it. As far as you know, it could mean anything. So consider answer choice words that you don't understand to be in the running as correct. Let's try this. Although at first he was quite polite and considerate, over time John's behavior became more exigent, inimical, obstreperous, not sure, quixotic, or stationary. I'll be honest, I know the word quixotic, but I don't know the other 3. However, I definitely do know that stationary is not the right answer. We've eliminated one answer choice, and as we've recommended, once you've done that, it's probably safe to guess. Quixotic doesn't seem like it related. So we're left with exigent, inimical, or obstreperous. I have no idea what either of these words mean. I'm not going to waste time trying to figure them out either. I know for a fact I don't know them, and so let's be honest with ourselves, just pick one and move on. Now, let's run through the general strategy once more. The first step of answering a sentence completion question is reading the question to identify what words or phrases form the definition of the word in the blank. The second step is to note any words that change the direction of this relationship, like although, however, or in spite of. The third step is to come up with your own word, real or not, or even a recycled term, that defines what you expect to see in the blank, without looking at the answer choices. After coming up with your own word, without seeing the answer choices, the fourth and final step is to match up your word with choices that the question gives you. Sentence completion questions are a great chance for ETS to drill you on tough vocabulary. Even if you have a sentence totally mastered, without the proper vocabulary, you may not even be able to use what you know. Let's look at this example. Instead of blank the conflict, the negotiators quarreled vigorously and made no progress towards achieving a ceasefire. Inundating, prevaricating, compounding, mitigating, and irrigating are all pretty tough words. And here, unlike the last exercise, where we have the word stationary as an easy eliminate, we're really given no easy breaks. If you know these words, you'll be able to guess and possibly add another point to your score. And that's exactly why it's important to memorize those vocabulary words. That's pretty much it for this lecture on basic sentence completions. We'll tackle more advanced problems in another lecture, but for now, focus on knowing the procedure, working on your vocabulary, and practicing until you don't even have to think about it. See you next time.